Hi, we're Think Machine from Wilmington, Delaware, and we're a punk band. My name is Nate, and I play guitar and do vocals.
And I'm Evan, and I play drums and sing a little bit too.
I would say our music is eclectic.
I was going to say cathartic.
Hmm, that's a good one. Um, I would say experimental to some degree.
That's good. Um, I think strong. Like we tend to have a always strong bass line, guitar, and drums going on. So yeah, strong.
Yeah, certainly. What's the word that I'm looking for? Um, not soft.
Hard.
um, I do play bass in other bands occasionally, and so I do like playing bass. Other than that, I can't really play many other instruments. I took piano lessons for like 2 years, and I still am just god awful at it. I'd like to learn it actually someday. I can pretty much fake my way through any stringed instrument, I think, but that's kind of stretching my limits, I think.
And like violin and shit.
No.
um, I also play guitar. I started playing guitar before I played drums, and I still play guitar sometimes, but I think I'm better at drums. My first one is Every Time I Die.
That's good. That was mine.
Yeah, I figured we probably share that one. Do you want to go back and forth or?
No, you do.
All right. Jeff Buckley. I love Jeff Buckley. And number three is honestly just any of our friends' bands, like people that we live with and see at the scene. Like I don't know who Merger if they still existed. Anyone like that?
um, I was gonna say Keith Buckley from Every Time I Die, but I think Evan kind of ticked that, so I'll let him have that one. Um, I would say specifically our good buddy Eli Gordy Stith, who actually we have had the pleasure of on a few occasions doing some stuff with, and it was so fun that I dream of doing it again. Um, but also not necessarily specifically for this band, but music in general. If he was still living, I would love to collaborate with Jim Croce. He is a huge inspiration to me in the way he could write songs, um, and just the life he lived. And then, kind of similarly, I would have loved to be able to play guitar with my pops.
So I guess our first practice together in a different band, but still was us, was in eighth grade when Nate played guitar and I played guitar and our friend Sean played guitar, and we all played guitar together and covered like a Foo Fighters song or something. And we played to the song, and I think that was tuned in standard tuning, and we were all tuned half step down so we could sing it easier, and like had this whole argument over whether we should tune it the same as the song playing or not. But basically, that was the first time we ever played music together.
Um, yeah, so that was the first band that we played in, which in some arguments is kind of what kind of evolved into this band. But I'll say more specifically when we officially became Think Machine. I remember it was Evan and I, and then our old bassist. And I remember we had our very first song, 1,000 Voices. And I remember playing through that at our first practice because I had pretty much had it written completely. And it was really cool and interesting because the chemistry that specifically Evan and I had, but just the band as a whole, um, when we played that song was just like somehow leagues above how we were in the old band, which had been the same members, but we had other musical experiences, I think, between that kind of let us become better musicians. So it was definitely like this is right. Our chemistry is finally like at a point where I think we can really work off each other. I'd say there's like a very, very small pool of covers that we know offhand, but with the nature of the chemistry that Evan and I have for having played music together so long, especially in this two-piece format, pretty much any song that I know how to play on guitar, we can kind of just kind of wing it and not have it be just like terrible. uh, and of course, that always works best if it's songs that we both are familiar with. But I feel pretty confidently, just again in our chemistry, that if there's just a song that we both just have a general feel for, that we can make it work.
Yeah, I feel like as Think a Machine, we have maybe covered like two songs, but Nervous Breakdown, that song by Mannequin Pussy, Pledge.
Fuck, I forgot.
Yeah. Um, but in high school, we played covers all the time at like the open mics and stuff and playing my uncle's party. So like the total number of covers we've played together is probably like 100, but like as Think Machine, maybe like two.
I would say that my guilty pleasure listening music is not something that I listen to very much now, but
Oh, I think I know.
actually, I don't know. This one's a little bit like really deep in my dark secrets. Um, when I was much younger, I was super into Rascal Flats. No. Like I wasn't like a big country fan at all, but for whatever reason, Rascal Flats really did it for me. And I have not listened to Rascal Flats in probably a decade. But if I heard one of their songs, I'd still probably kind of sing under my breath and tap my toe.
I thought you were gonna say ska.
Oh no, I'm still a ska head at heart.
uh, um, I don't feel guilty about any of my pleasures, but if I had to, I guess probably like EDM. Like I don't listen to EDM often, but like if I were to listen to EDM in front of like you and like Diego, they'd be like, "What the fuck are you doing?" So
I feel the same way about like Megadeth and just thrash metal and stuff.
True.
We both collectively at the same time went through a really big phase of that. And now we can both just like look back and be like, man, that was really cheesy. It's still really fun, but like I have to be in a very, very specific mood to want to listen to that.
yeah, Rust in Peace by Megadeth is my guilty pleasure. So if I was a pro wrestler, I would definitely try to take on a persona of like some kind of maniac and like be very theatrical in my in kind of how I present myself.
So bad.
I know, yeah, I know, I want to. But so there's this band that we saw in Massachusetts called Ouroboros, and their music is so exactly like that. Like it really makes you feel like you're insane, and like it's kind of screamy and evil sounding. And then seeing them live is like just even more of that, especially with their singer. She like is just so good at making this presence on stage that is like really like viscerally kind of like unsettling and like just awesome. So like anything by them, probably the song Climb by them would be my walkout song to whatever sport I'm doing.
That is so killer. That is I envy you for having such a good answer. Um, I would say for me, if I was a pro wrestler or athlete of some kind, I think I just want something kind of fun like the Beastie Boys. Uh, maybe something from Check Your Head. I can't think of any specific song because that whole album's really cool. Maybe like Pass the Mic, but just like something that's just like what's more fun than the Beastie Boys? You know, I think that's what I'd go for.
Okay, so when I think of albums that inspired me to make music, I there are different time periods I think of. So like first in like eighth grade, like probably shit like Megadeth and like Rust in Peace. I loved that album in eighth grade, and I was like, I want to drum like what's his name, Nick Menza or something. Um, and then like that was that, and then the next record I think of is Different Damage by Q and Not You, when we were or Different Damages when we went on tour with Kobika. and we brought that CD and listened to it over and over. That was when, I guess that was kind of towards the beginning of Think Machine and kind of before our more experimental music started. And that would like touring with Kobika and listening to that record, we were like, we got to start doing shit like this is awesome. Like we need to do stuff like this. And so that felt like a next kind of phase in the band. And then after that, um, not a specific record, but just again music that our friends make in the scene, like hearing Kobika and like Khaki Cuffs and like Merger and all these bands that we see out of state, Driving Underwater, stuff like that. Like that's the biggest inspiration for me now is like hearing music that our friends make and just hearing all the different places that music can come from. It can be like emotionally charged or like politically charged and like just how it reflects everybody's experience. And so, yeah, those are the three kind of time periods for me that have inspired how I want to make music.
Yeah, I think I'll tackle the question in a similar way to you. Because unfortunately, I don't remember any specific albums in my youth. I was like, oh, this is like, I now want to make music. I just think that for me, my dad played guitar growing up, so I just kind of always was like, oh yeah, one day I'm gonna play guitar. And then with that for me was like, oh well, I guess I'll have to write music. Um, but yeah, similarly as a kid, I remember one of the first bands that like really like just made me interested in music aside from just like listening to it was probably the Beatles. I had um, there was a compilation album. It was I think it's just called One. It's like the red one and has a big one on it. And it just has like a compilation of a bunch of Beatles songs. And I remember listening to that a lot before I like delved into their like full discography. And then as time went on, Rise Against was like a really big one for me in middle school, and that's kind of what introduced me to punk as a concept. And then through that, that's when I kind of discovered like old school punks and like the roots of it, and that was a huge inspiration for me. But I would say probably specifically their album, Rise Against album, Siren Song of the Counterculture was like one particularly where it was like this is a lot of like very protest-esque music that's really like palatable to me as a angsty middle schooler. Um, and then more recently, there are so many bands that I just draw so much inspiration from because they're just so unique and do so many things that are just like just so inspiring. But I think specifically the band Tangled Hair, which is made of members of another band that Evan and I really like. Um, but yeah, their album, I think it's We Do What We Can. It's just so awesome because it really blurs the line between like math rock and like experimental like time signature type stuff while sounding completely melodic and not sounding like it's trying to be something really complex. It's just it really blurs the lines in the way that I want to make music, and I really respect that album, and I think that really has made a huge impact on the way I write music.